Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019, and we are continuing to move forward through yet another season together. As always, you can always find our 100% free, 24/7, boots on the ground content covering the Jacksonville Jaguars when you follow us on social media such as Facebook or Twitter at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. All right, folks, welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. Today we are talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars' latest game. It was a 20-12 loss to the Seattle Seahawks at home. I won't lie to you guys, I picked the Jaguars this week, but it just felt from the first series that this wasn't going to be the kind of game that they've played all year. It just seemed very early on from just the way that they came out to the game, really, the way that the first couple plays went, that this was not going to be a game where the Jaguars were going to be able to get much going. That, I don't know if you want to call it sluggish coming out of Monday Night Football. I don't know if it's because they're banged up, which they are. They are banged up. They're missing Robert Hainsey, but he's obviously not the only one. There's also the fact that the Jaguars have several guys who are on the injury list throughout the year. There's the fact that the Jaguars came into this game with an offensive line that was mostly, on the injury report for one reason or another throughout the season. And for the Jaguars, I think it was, important for them to kind of see what happens to the offense when they don't have the running game. When they're not able to simply get out of plays through maybe the screen game, maybe some of the Trevor Lawrence scrambles. The Trevor scrambles that worked so well against the Chiefs 6 days ago, it didn't work against Kansas City. I mean, he tries scrambling on the first play of the game, takes a 2-yard loss. Next play, tries scrambling. He admittedly says he puts Ezra Cleveland in a bad position for trying to scramble so early, forces a holding. And on the very next play, negative yard screen to Travis Hunter. Then obviously there's the run that doesn't go anywhere. The Jaguars struggled to run the ball all day. They had fewer than 60 yards rushing. It was a very one-sided offensive affair from the Jaguars. I mean, they picked up some chunk gains here and there in the passing game. Trevor had the touchdown to Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas obviously, had one of his better days statistically. Caught 8 of his 10 targets. Caught his first receiving touchdown of the year. Tim Patrick caught his first touchdown as a Jaguar. But ultimately, the story of this game is going to be an offensive line that was overmatched. And a passing game and a quarterback that were overmatched. The Jaguars, quite simply, did not show up to play in terms of the trench battle. Jaguars gave up 7 sacks, the most sacks in Trevor Lawrence's career. Previous high was 5, happened a couple times, but he's never had a game like he had today. Well, he's just consistently being hammered away. I mean, the rate of dropbacks he had that had pressures on was astronomically high. I would assume probably the highest of his career. He was simply under siege throughout the whole day. And I'm not working that in as an excuse for Lawrence. There were some misses that he had. He had a miss to De'Ami Brown deep early on that really, I thought kind of summed up some of the Trevor Lawrence experience, that he made some other impressive tight window throws right around the same play as that throw, but you can't miss that one. He missed Travis Hunter downfield a few times where he didn't pull the trigger and get to him. There were a few times it looked like, I don't want to say the pressure and the sacks impacted him, but I will say that it certainly seemed like there were a few times where his pocket movement or his willingness to scramble was almost bordering on over willingness, and that Trevor, just simply could have been better for the Jaguars on Sunday. But behind that offensive line, it was hard to be. They got no running game. Passing game really couldn't get it open consistently. And the defense set them up several times in the second half to try to get back in the game. They really did. It wasn't just the offensive line either, and the blocking, etc. The penalties came at absolutely the worst times possible. A Travis Hunter offsides penalty took away a Brian Thomas Jr. 54-yard touchdown, which it would have been a terrible process play. It seemed like Brian Hunter ripped an interception out of the guy's hand and caught the bobble, ran in for a touchdown. That got negated. Several other explosive plays got negated. And like Liam Cohen said, it wasn't just the fact that they're getting penalized. And they are, a lot. They didn't against Kansas City. That's really the only game. It is the fact that the penalties came at the worst time. The defense, I thought, held its own for much of the second half. There were just really 3 plays that I can think of that really hurt the defense. There was the big touchdown, JSN, downfield over Greg Newsome. Greg Newsome, go cover JSN, your first snap as a Jaguar, was certainly a tall ask. I'm not the best scheme guy, so I can't tell you how much of that touchdown was on Newsome, how much of it was on Andrew Wingard. I know a lot of people, including the broadcast team specifically, seem to indicate that was the case. I can't tell you. But what I can tell you was that the Jaguars' pass defense played a good game outside of 3 plays. It was that play. It was the A.J. Barner catch and run at the very end of the game to basically end the game. And then it was Cooper Kupp's 29-yard catch across the middle to set up his eventual touchdown. You can throw his touchdown in there too. The defense, though, just didn't make plays. They were very good against the run. They forced some mistakes from Sam Darnold, but the pressure just did not seem to be there. At one point in the game, they only had 1 quarterback hit compared to the Seahawks having 14 at that point in the game. The Jaguars, simply put, were not a team that was able to play a high-level brand of football without forcing takeaways. At least not on Sunday they weren't. And that's been the question. What will the defense look like when you don't get takeaways? And that's, on Sunday, it looked like not a bad defense, but not necessarily a special one either. And that would be on them to obviously come back from that. And then lastly, Cam Little. That might have been Cam Little's worst game as a Jaguar. And he has struggled in the first 6 games of the season. I don't think there's any denying that. He missed a big kick against Houston. He missed a big kick against San Francisco. And he now missed a field goal and a point-after attempt in the same game. Yes, the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence and the offense did him no favors by pushing him back about 8 or 9 yards before his field goal. But missing the point-after can't happen. At the end of the day, the Jaguars were down 4 points from his 2 missed kicks. So that would have been a 20-16 game. Probably a 20-17 because you can imagine they just kicked the extra point after the Tim Patrick touchdown as opposed to going for 2 and then not getting it. So the Cam Little misses had a residual effect and larger impact on the Jaguars and their inability to really be in this thing with the Seahawks. So it was a team loss for the Jaguars. The offense had the biggest hand in it, but special teams certainly didn't help, and neither did the lack of big plays made from the defense. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. Be back next time.